Welcome to the regularly scheduled Littleton City Council meeting for Tuesday, the 21st of August, 2012. We very much appreciate you taking some time to be with us and joining us for our deliberations this evening. Mayor Brinkman is not available. She is attending to a personal matter this evening and is unable to be with us, but we, of course, wish her all the best. City Clerk, would you please read the roll? Take the roll.
Mayor Brinkman. Mayor Pro Tem Stallman.
Here.
Councilmember Beckman.
Here.
Councilmember Cernanek.
Present.
Councilmember Cole. Here. Councilmember Taylor.
Present.
Councilmember Valdez.
Here. Council did properly enter into an executive session at the beginning, at 6 p.m. this evening, by opening the meeting and reading the executive session motion and identifying that the city manager, city attorney, and our water attorney were to join us in executive session. We then closed that meeting at 6:47 p.m. this evening and came back in for the regularly scheduled meeting. Next up is our Pledge of Allegiance, if you please.
It's behind the screen.
Oh, hey.
Let the man in uniform.
That's good. Good.
Oh, thank you, Chief.
Good problem solving here.
All right. Nothing up your sleeve.
Chief, would you care to lead us?
Please join me.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much.
Go.
Okay. Changes to the agenda, we've got two to begin with. It's my understanding that agenda item 7B pertaining to the private activity bond for the Littleton Housing Authority doing business as South Metro Housing Options has been pulled, and therefore we will not discuss that this evening. However, we are adding consent agenda item 7E, which is a draft approval of a letter to the Army Corps of Engineers with respect to the Chatfield reallocation draft environmental impact study, which was the subject of the executive session this evening. Are there any other changes to the agenda?
Mayor Pro Tem Stallman, I just want to, on behalf of the South Metro Housing Options, they're evaluating some additional financing options, and so before they brought this forward to the council, they wanted to exhaust other ideas as well. So this may return to you, or some other financing mechanism may come through you. So just so you understand why they felt good about this, but they looked at something else, and I can't speak to details of what that is, but they contacted us late this afternoon. So just stay tuned for this possibly showing up on the agenda again. Okay, thank you. Any other agenda changes? Seeing none, let's move to approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of 17 July 2012. Any changes to those? How about the minutes of the study session of August 7, 2012? And lastly, the minutes of the regular meeting for 7 August 2012. No? Seeing none, then those are approved as submitted, or as changes had been given previously to the city clerk. Staff reports, staff and council reports, city manager? I have no report this evening.
Okay. Don't have city attorney on there, and she's...
We've removed the attorney from the agenda.
Is that, okay, very good. Then let's proceed to council member reports. Council member Cole.
Okay, two things. First, I want to thank everybody in the community, on staff and so forth, for all they did to make Western Welcome Week such a wonderful series of events. And the cleanup staff, I had lots of very, very positive feedback from people about how spiffy the streets looked by the next morning. So really hard work by a lot of people. Then last week, we had a wonderful report about the Greater Littleton Youth Initiative. And if you didn't watch that meeting, you can watch on the TV, on the repeat broadcast, or on the computer. But I encourage people who might be interested in Greater Littleton Youth Initiative to attend any or all of the meetings. They're open to the public. They meet on second Fridays during months that school is in session from 3 to 4 to 4:30, depends. And the meetings are just really interesting. But then I'd like to also call attention to the fact that former city manager Jim Woods and former director of business industry affairs were to a great extent responsible for Greater Littleton Youth Initiative being established. Jim Woods still attends the meetings, the board meetings. But anyway, wonderful organization, and really would welcome anybody to attend those. Thank you.
Councilmember Taylor?
Yes, I received an email from a citizen who was inquiring about a rumor going around about another attempt to bypass the Constitution having to do with video slot machines. And I was wondering if anybody else had had any contacts about that or know anything about it. If you do, let me know. I'd be very interested in following up with this gentleman. I agree with Peggy. We had some great Western Welcome Week events. There were some of the largest crowds ever, particularly at Stern Park. I never saw so many people as they were at Stern Park at that concert. I think it probably had to do with the fact that we were doing fireworks, and all the other fireworks earlier for the 4th of July had been canceled. But the pancake breakfast was also had overflowing crowds as well. Sometimes the line for buying tickets was clear out the door of ACC. Saturday afternoon, I attended a reception for Missy Franklin over in Centennial. There were 5 other Olympians there. Some had won medals, some had not. Some had just participated, but they all came to the city park right by Centennial City Hall, and it was really a great affair. There were several hundred people there for that reception. The governor spoke, as well as all 6 of the Olympians spoke. And then Saturday night, there was a great jazz concert that occurred at Town Hall Arts Center. If you haven't been attending these jazz concerts, they are held yearly. It's put on by the Jazz Foundation, and they are really some very good programs. And then lastly, well, not last, I do want to talk about the C-470 Corridor Coalition. This arrived yesterday. I don't know if they've even got a press release on it yet, but there were 5 one-hour telephone town halls that were held over 3 consecutive nights. There were over 100,000 contacts made by telephone, over 21,000 hooked in and listened to the hour-long presentations. And it was about sharing information about how C-470 could be widened and how it could be funded. Right now, the cost from I-25 to Kipling is about $200 million. That's the estimated cost. During the time of the polling, there were 3 polling questions that were asked. The first one was, how often do you drive the C-470 corridor? And the majority, at 31%, was more than 3 times per week. I've got the other statistics for once a week or not at all, if you are interested in that. And then they wanted to know how important it was to improve the safety along C-470 and how to identify revenues for improvements. And the largest of that was somewhat important, followed by very important percentages. And then based on what you know today, which option of funding would you prefer, which is 1 express toll lane in the middle lane and 2 outside lanes would be not tolled, or toll the entire segment, all 3 lanes, or none of the segments and fund it through either sales tax or property tax. 52% of those people wanted to have a tolled express lane, and 39% wanted to have some other property tax or sales tax to pay for the tolling. So I'm sure we'll get press releases out on that at some point before too long. Then lastly, Dr. Cog report. After much haggling, we finally approved a $36.7 million supplemental funds that went to approximately 10 projects in the metro area. And then another huge disagreement occurred when the North Area Transportation Authority submitted a resolution to require RTD to not spend any funds until the north lines were under construction, which is the North Metro and the Northwest line. You can imagine the consternation that caused. Finally, a compromise was reached, and it did get approved by a majority vote, but it removed the offensive language out of there and will allow matching funds to continue to be used. It's important to us because we have sitting in a pool of funds at DRCOG some money for extending our line going into Highlands Ranch. We're just needing to wait for the federal match that comes available. We did approve the 2012-2017 Transportation Improvement Program, which included $7 million for improvements on Santa Fe from Blakeland to Crestline. So that will be coming in the next 5 years to be some improvements along Santa Fe. And that's the DRCOG report.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Valdez.
Thank you. I, too, would want to give my congratulations to the Western Welcome Week organization and its sponsors for its successful 12 days of the 84th Annual Western Welcome Week celebration. I am looking forward to hearing what the numbers were or are for the parade and the festivities. As Jim had mentioned, the other ones had huge numbers, and I think the parade and that Saturday was great. At the Taste of Littleton, which is a part of the WWW, I met with a group of about 20 visitors from England who were brought to the event by host families from Littleton and families from the surrounding area whom are members of the Friendship Force. So it's pretty cool that they brought them to our little event. And on a different subject, from time to time I receive calls and emails, prefer the emails, concerning issues that are both large and small, but nonetheless they're all very important. Typically, I notify the city manager about the issues and, that have been brought to my attention, but I want to publicly thank the city manager, Mr. Penny, and his staff for making sure these issues are resolved in a timely way. Thank you very much. And last, I would also like to thank the citizens of Littleton that do take the time to make those calls and emails, and also to come to the city council meetings to express their concerns and at times their appreciation for concerns concerning issues regarding the city. So thanks to everybody. Again, for me, emails are a very effective way to make contact with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Cernanek.
Yes, with regard to Western Welcome Week festivities and all the activities, though the crowds were great, I wouldn't want to discourage anyone from coming and participating. They were fun times to be had by all, and occasionally when you were in a line, you had a chance to actually relate with some folks from Littleton or some folks that were visiting Littleton. So don't let the crowds disturb you, I guess, would be a good way to do that. Two other items with regard to DRCOG. For other council members, a reminder that the DRCOG idea exchange around mall redevelopment presentation is Thursday morning at 10 a.m. Brighton and Wheat Ridge are going to be presenting a bit of their stories. In addition to that, there is a DRCOG orientation session Thursday afternoon at 4 p.m. We do have some items coming up for first reading this evening dealing with boards and commissions, and just a reminder that the task force did deal with and has a few other items to clean up yet to come, and those are items like the recruiting and interviewing process yet to occur for new members and renewing members to the boards and commissions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Beckman.
Not to sound like a broken record, I too want to congratulate the city, the staff, and the board and folks at Western Welcome Week, Inc. It takes a lot of work to put one of those events together, and then you have a couple weeks of those events, and it's a tremendous amount of work. The city staff included police and fire who worked to ensure the safety of citizens attending those events, public services who worked with all the issues dealing with the streets and the venues, and then the different department heads who helped in because of the venue that was being used for those events, all the different city buildings, et cetera. And that was just city staff. We had a tremendous number of City of Littleton volunteers from both folks that work here as well as citizens, and they all did it just for a T-shirt. And I want to thank them for stepping up and doing that. You also had, as I said, the board, and Cindy Hathaway and the board they're probably starting next week for the one next year. It takes them a long time to put it together, and they deserve our recognition for contributing so much to what makes Littleton so special. So thanks to all of them. And that's what I have.
Okay, thank you. Sure, I'll pile on. Beyond, I don't know if anybody mentioned the folks from the Citizens Police Alumni Association who were out helping with crowd control, and obviously police and fire and so forth, certainly at the parade. But I think whoever was able to order up and get cooperation from the powers that be on the weather, well done. I don't think you could get a nicer weather pattern. Certainly the parade was just absolutely incredible in terms of not being too warm, not being too cold, a real Goldilocks moment, if you will. So the other thing I did want to mention is I got an email from a citizen, and I had mentioned this at our Hoodlum breakfast, but I wanted to mention it broadly as well, also as a bit of a plug, if you will, thanking the community for teeing up or completing the accessible parking spaces that are now available for public use, non-paid obviously, across from Littleton Cleaners and the Reinke Brother parking lot on the southwest corner of his parking facility. So I believe there are at least 5 handicapped accessible or accessible parking, 5 or 6, okay, accessible parking spaces. And the individual, the lady who sent a note said it was much, much easier than worrying about stepping over a curb, for example, to transfer a kiddo with developmental disabilities. So if you haven't availed yourselves of them or you didn't know they were there, the city now has those parking spots available for anyone and everyone to use, and please feel free to take advantage of them. Thank you. Next up on our agenda this evening is a guest citizen presentation that will certainly rival the opening ceremonies for the London Olympic Games. The award for the women's team for the Kaiser Permanente Colfax Marathon winners. So if you please, and I believe we have at least a few of the ladies who ran who are welcome to come down and
Some presentations here.
share the joy. Please, yeah, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council members. I'm Katie Hawksworth, and I'm the Area Administrator for the South Metro area of Kaiser Permanente. I oversee 4 medical offices and responsible for about 75,000 of our members. And I'm so pleased to be here on behalf of Kaiser Permanente and the Colfax Marathon. Last year, my colleague Rita Williams was here to award the same team who won this year, only they won even faster this year. It's very exciting knowing that there's been a great increase in the number of runners every year, and this year there was twice as many in the government and corporate divisions cup. For us, events like this marathon are a great investment. We love seeing people challenge their fitness and health and in the community that we live and work. So we're pleased to partner again with the Colfax Marathon, and our teams can make donations to their nonprofit entity of their choice. And today, Brian Elms, a board member of Colfax Marathon, is here with us. We're pleased to present.
Awesome. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. I'm Brian Elms. I'm a board member with the Kaiser Colfax Marathon. First, I want to thank Kaiser for the generous donation of $21,000 to nonprofits in the area. Kaiser is, as Kathy was suggesting, they're an incredible, generous partner in this and have done a great job for many nonprofits, especially the ones that Littleton picks. I wanted to invite the Mayor Pro Tem down to take a photo with us. I'd also like to invite the team Soul Sisters to join us, not the City Slackers, just the Soul Sisters.
But the
to
city
join us.
slackers are all present.
I'm glad they are, especially when they get to see what we're handing out.
Mayor Pro Tem, I don't know if we have time for this evening. We need to move the agenda along.
The Soul Sisters comprised of Kirsten Crawford, Tiffany Hooten, Kim Ferber, Aaron Brennan, and Tricia McCarthy. They ran 4 hours, 42 minutes, and 23 seconds. They were 54 minutes faster than the men's team from Littleton. I believe that the team captain is here. Is the team captain for the city, the Slackers here?
Charlie.
Charlie. So I wanted to present this trophy. to the women's team, but more importantly, the women's team won $2,500 to the charity of their choice. They chose the Colorado Children's Hospital Foundation, and this wonderful, beautiful $2,500 fake check. I have the real one, don't worry. And our good friend, Natalie Urid from the Children's Hospital Foundation is here. Thank you, guys. So I'd love to present this to the team so they can present it to the Children's Hospital Foundation.
Is it appropriately made out there, Tiffany?
We did okay? We have trophies for all the runners, so make sure you grab the trophies. But I wanted to sit this here for the entire meeting.
Let Charlie hold it.
So that the city slackers can see it. Again, we thank you so much for all your support in this marathon, and thank you so much for running it 2 years in a row. I did challenge the fire chief. I work for the city and county of Denver. The West Metro fire team in Lakewood won first place in the men's division. The second place men's division was the Denver Fire Department. And we had to disqualify the Aurora Fire Department, who came in the fastest but didn't have 5 members on their team. So they promised that they will do it. But I would love to see a Littleton Fire team next year. I would also love to see a city council team next year.
Well, you had at least 2 members from the council. And Brian, what you neglected to mention is that the city slackers improved their position in finishing.
Oh, good job.
See, the women did not. They just,
Actually,
all they did was finish second twice in a row.
From what I heard, they dropped 15 more minutes off of theirs. And so I apologize, council member. I neglected to mention that. But thank you guys so much for all your work. Kathy, thank you again. For Katie, sorry. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Like this. Thank you.
That's great.
We are, of course, decidedly proud of the women who have been exemplary, and as far as the slackers are concerned, we're certainly throwing the gauntlet down to get a rematch up for next year, I'm assuming. Charlie, I'm looking at you. Okay. Thank you so much. That brings us to unscheduled public appearances, which are an opportunity for any citizen to express an opinion or ask a question regarding City Services Council policies or other matters of community concern that aren't part of the subsequent scheduled agenda. Generally speaking, an immediate response isn't anticipated. We typically will, if there's follow-on items, ask staff to follow up with the individual who has a question or concern and respond to both them and council. Does anybody have any unscheduled public appearances? Norm or Paul? Well, thanks. Thank you for coming anyway. Very good. Then moving right along, we will proceed with the consent agenda.
There is a public hearing they may speak at.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, when we get to...
Just cautioning you, I have no idea why they're here, but it's nice they are here.
I would agree, and we'll look forward to their comments.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve consent agenda items 7A, 7B, 7...
We have to...
Oh.
Phil, we have to read them first
right.
and
Okay.
consider them, and then we'll... So hold that thought. Let's see. The first one is a resolution. 7A is a resolution authorizing an intergovernment agreement between the City of Littleton and the City of Englewood for a study regarding the shared fire service. Kirsten, would you read that, please?
This is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Littleton, Colorado, authorizing an IGA between the City of Littleton and the City of Englewood for a study regarding shared fire services.
And purpose of this is to essentially extend, if possible, the relationship that Littleton and Englewood fire departments have had in terms of sharing resources and services for more than 30 years. Indeed, a very successful working relationship. The study will evaluate both departments and determine the feasibility of additional shared services up to and including a possible merger. The cost of the study is going to be shared equally by the cities of Littleton and Englewood, not to exceed $57,668.
I would like to pull that, please.
Okay. 7A has been pulled. Item 7B has been abdicated. Item 7C is a motion to initiate a 30-day public comment period on the proposed resolution to rename the Littleton Museum Education Orientation Room after Robert McQuarrie. This item is in reference to the museum board that voted unanimously on August 6, 2012, to recommend the renaming of the museum's Education Orientation Room in honor of the museum's founding director, the late Robert McQuarrie. And in accordance with the recently approved City of Littleton naming guidelines, Council's approval of this motion will initiate the 30-day public comment period. Item 7D is a resolution approving funding for the new South Metro Trails map. Kirsten, if you please.
This is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Littleton, Colorado, approving an IGA with Arapahoe County relating to the contribution of county open space program funds for the environmental education and community outreach to fund a new South Metro Trails map.
Okay, very good. The city has been approved for a $22,800 grant by the Arapahoe County Open Space for preparation of the trail map. The city proposes to enter into the intergovernmental agreement with the county to receive the funds. Essentially, new trails have been developed over a period of time, and the existing maps are out of date. The city is not obligated to provide any funding for the trail map other than the administrative time of the Public Works Director. And the new item we added, 7E, is a motion to approve a draft letter to the Army Corps of Engineers regarding the Chatfield reallocation draft environmental impact study with minor modifications and as discussed in this evening's executive session.
We're going to, although you have electronic copies, we're going to hand you hard copies now for the record.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve consent agenda items 7C, 7D, and 7E.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Councilmember Cernanek moved and Councilmember Cole seconded. Any discussion? You're ready to vote?
The vote is 6 in favor. The motion carries.
Thank you. Item 7A was pulled by Councilmember Valdez. Jerry, if you please.
Yes, a couple questions on this. I was just wondering how ESCI was selected. With this kind of money, I wanted to know if it was competitive bid, sole source, single source, a little bit about the company itself. Maybe the chief can provide us with this. One other thing, too, is were there any Colorado companies considered? And another question that I do have is that ESCI does state that they will invoice monthly, but throughout this agreement, I don't see any period of performance in here when they expect to have the work done. So is it just going to be billed monthly until the funds are gone? So if you could maybe address a few of those for me, Chief, please. The other thing I didn't see in the agreement anywhere is nowhere does CSCI have to provide proof of insurance of any sort.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem. Good council. ESCI, Emergency Service Consultant International, is actually sponsored by the International Association of Fire Chiefs and came recommended by them. ESCI has done several merger studies here in the metro area and have a stellar reputation. That's why they were picked. We did not consider any other consulting firms. We've had experience with consulting firms, but none come higher rated than ESCI. ESCI, as you probably know, did the merger study with South Metro and Parker. We have talked with Chief Qualman and his staff, and they were extremely impressed by the work that was provided by ESCI. Another one that has been extremely successful is the City of Evans. Within the City of Evans, they created a fire protection district. The way they were able to do this is with the navigation provided by ESCI.
If I may add, I think that there's really on a national level, there's probably two firms, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, here, there's this one and there is an arm of the International City County Management Association. I believe that's where it's housed, that also has an arm that does some of this analysis work. But as the Chief mentioned, based upon some of the front range ones that had been done in the references, we felt like this was an appropriate. There was a company that was familiar with the front range and that had a level of trust with Inglewood, and so our partners in this project as well. And lastly, I'd say that we ran this by our partners in the ranch and the district, and they concurred and supported this request.
Do we have some documentation that justifies why we're doing the sole source? I mean, for the record? I mean, it's great for you to come here and tell me, but do we have something in the file, too, that is written up saying why it's
no, but we
single
could
source?
Certainly add it to the record. And
I think that would be worthwhile
okay.
to have something like that. And the other question, Chief, too, is that it's going to be monthly billing, but it doesn't say how long it's expected to take or the period of performance.
ESCI, when we first started talking to them about a month ago, said that they would probably turn out this product within 3 to 4 months. We anticipate that by the end of this year, they will have provided something for our elected officials to study. One thing I also wanted to mention, Jerry, and that is ESCI also did the study that the ranch and the district did contract for. So they have pretty good knowledge already of our operation, and I think that'll bode well for us.
And the other point, and maybe it's more for our city attorney, was that there was nothing regarding because they're going to have staff coming here, and as well as Inglewood, in our various facilities. There's nothing in there about insurance, about their employees and their contractors being covered.
The way it's arranged is they're independent contractors. We would not cover them. Are you talking about workers' comp?
Yes.
We would not cover them for that, no.
I know we wouldn't cover them, but is there any statement in there that they will indeed cover their employees?
Well, we
don't cover them, I know, but
we don't have to put a statement to. It's their obligation. So.
Right, but we haven't asked them to prove us the proof of insurance that these folks are not covered.
We do not have that in there. We could add it, certainly.
Right, I appreciate that. That protects us. It protects the city of Littleton. Okay.
Councilmember Beckman.
Hi, Chief. Good evening. Who's going to be the project manager for the city of Littleton for this study?
Myself.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
And I'll be working closely with Michael Paderozzi.
I'm sorry.
And Michael Paderozzi is the chief of Inglewood. So it'll be we'll be the two main participants.
as the project managers, when you read through the agreement, you have opportunities to work with them as they gather information and to look at the initial draft and some of their initial presumptions. Is that a time where you would make changes and redirect or talk about different points of view, or is it pretty much for accuracy that you would review those drafts? What I'm concerned with is in the past, I know consultants will put something together, but those that are paying for that project may feel it goes in an inappropriate direction or doesn't answer a question, and changes occur from the time that it's originally investigated and put in draft to what the final is. And I think it's always creates questions about the integrity of the final product, actually.
Council, I promise you that there will be transparency, that you will be involved as we march through this project. Also, the City of Littleton staff, as well as the City of Inglewood staff, will certainly be apprised and be consulted during the study itself. I think that ESCI has put together a pretty good scope of work that you have in front of you as part of the contract. We have seen and heard that they have adhered to that pretty closely in all the other studies they've done. There are very few surprises when ESCI presents, or before ESCI presents their final recommendations and scope of work.
I have a couple other questions.
Sure, please.
They talk about comparing the practices of the two departments they're studying with what are the industry standards and best practices, but I don't know what the reference is that they use to get those. You mentioned that they have backing by the International Association, but is there a way that those references or those practices could be referred to so that we know what is their standards of comparison?
Certainly.
Okay, that would be helpful to me. I would sure like to know that in advance. It would be helpful if it's even on the web or just referenced.
That'll be included.
And then my final question for you, Chief, is I think one of the challenges of putting this together is, as I look through that scope of work, is I know from my experience at the city that some of the things that they suggest that they will want to review were not a standard practice over the past few years to develop. Strategic plans is a good example for perhaps. So I hope that we're able to get past some of the lack of information to still be able to build the kind of document that will help us understand where we've been, how we got to where we are now, and where we perhaps could go with some alternatives, because I know some of that documentation will be shy for the past.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Valdez?
Yes, back to the statement of work where it did say, it commented about they will collaborate with the management team. Is that the question you were asking about too? Because I had the same question about the management team, and that's from our side. That'll be you apparently. And also it said in here that's when they're going to start that's when they'll develop and identify certain tasks. And it seemed to me that in the statement of work, those primary tasks were already known. Now but in the statement of work, it says they're going to develop those primary tasks. Also, it says that during the course of these meetings with the management teams, that's when they're going to finalize the contractual agreements. And I guess it's not quite clear to me. Does this mean the statement of work is not finalized until after they start the work?
I believe this is a pretty final document. We can certainly adjust as we go through there if there's something that we want them to delve into a little deeper or maybe give us more clarification. We certainly, I believe this will be a living document as we go through it. I think it'll be very workable. I think that when they get done with this and present their findings, that it will give us the opportunity to make some good choices for the city of Littleton.
Thank you.
Councilmember Cole?
Yeah, I have a question about the resolution. There are three whereases. The second one focuses on the city, both cities, continue to provide a high level of service while looking for ways to provide these services in the most effective and efficient manner. That's one. And the third whereas The city council deems a jointly funded study by the consultant that could identify possibilities of shared services, etc. What I'd be interested in also is a clear elaboration of the strengths and the possible weaknesses or the negatives, any possible negatives of doing this. That they're actually looking to see. There may not be any, but I would want them to consider, are there any negatives? Yeah, but I'm just clarifying that, so.
Yes, Councilmember Cole, I believe that what they will be doing is looking at the service that both Littleton and Inglewood provide to evaluate that service, to see if there are any gaps in those services, and also if there's any redundancy in those services, and use that to then bring together their recommendations for how we go forward.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Great, thank you.
Chief, two real quick questions. I know you're certainly representing the city, but in your capacity as chief, you're also then representing the fire partners, the district, and the ranch. And their involvement with you in terms of this, I mean, obviously you'll keep all three parties apprised of what's happening equivalently, I assume.
The goal, Mayor Pro Tem, is to involve all the stakeholders in this process, not only the government officials, city staffs on both, but also the troops from both fire departments as we go through this too.
Perfect.
To let them know what we're looking at, what's being evaluated, the results of that evaluation, and then the recommendations on how we go forward.
Okay, terrific. And the last question I had was, it says the cost is going to be split between Littleton and Inglewood, but is our share of it then subject to a three-way split with the partners, or are we just paying for this?
We were just going to pay for it ourselves.
Just the city?
Just the city for the 27.5.
Okay. And the logic for that was?
This is our study.
Okay. But we are going to involve the partners based on what I was hearing. Okay. Okay. All right.
Back to Councilmember Valdez's comment about whether they're covering their own employees for workers' compensation. I think the best, because it was approved by Inglewood, I think the best option is to ask them for their certificate of insurance rather than revise the agreement, because then it would have to go back to Inglewood as well.
And that's what I was getting at.
Okay,
That's
good.
all. Yes, that's all.
And just to be clear, Inglewood did approve this on second reading last night, so.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Would someone care to make a motion?
Oh, I do have one other question. I'm
please.
sorry. On page 7, I believe is on task 3. I'm sorry, task 2. It said that the sentence just ended with included our, and I guess I don't know where that's supposed to go after that. You see what I'm talking about?
Task 2G.
Task 2, phase 3. You go down to the bottom of page 7.
Oh, included our.
I'm assuming somebody read this thing to make sure it was complete, and that's why I say when I don't see a period of performance and I see kind of sentences that end like that, I wonder if how close was this looked at.
Oh, I'll certainly look at that too.
Where are you, Jerry?
I'm on page 7 of the.
Oh, I got you.
Got it. The statement of work where it talks about it's task 2E, and it goes down to phase 3, page 7.
Looks like they just.
The very last thing, also, it just kind of stops.
Yeah, deleted or ends without.
When I read that, I presumed that what followed was task 3A, task 3B. That's the way I read that. It's just at a page break, so it's odd.
Yep.
Yeah, is that what it is?
Agree.
That's the way I read it. Okay.
Because it is phase 3.
Continued.
This phase 3 includes
Well, I would have liked Peggy to have added to that.
No, I mean, I think there's something missing.
I think there's something missing as well.
Because you have a whole list of tasks. So the following, the tasks that follow that can't be part of that lead-in that seems to be missing something.
That's advice from our local expert there. Thank you, Peggy. So that might need to be cleaned up as well. That's it.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, would someone care to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move the resolution approving the IGA for the commissioning of a shared services feasibility study between Littleton Fire Rescue and Englewood Fire Department be approved.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Cernanek, a second from Councilmember Cole. Any discussion?
And those items will be in the file that we talked about, as far as the certificates of insurance and the single source justification. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Then are we ready to vote? If you would do so.
The vote is 6 in favor. The motion carries.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is an ordinance on first reading regarding the regarding the board changes to the code per the board and commission task force recommendation. Kirsten, would you kindly read that?
This is an ordinance of the City of Littleton, Colorado, pertaining to the structure, power, authority, and duties of the City of Littleton boards and commissions.
The Boards and Commissions Task Force was appointed by the City Council in its entirety to meet and discuss each board and commission for appropriate structure, number of members, makeup, need, and service in support of council goals and objectives. The members were Councilmember Cole, Beckman, and Cernanek that participated and then provided their recommendations back to council, which then are being discussed in various study sessions and brought forward by staff as changes to specific sections of the code where applicable. This is one of those items this evening. In as much as, let's see, this is a first reading, I would now open the public hearing and ask staff to make their presentation on this particular item.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So you did a great job on the summary there. This specific action before you was one of several recommendations that came from that task force. And the intent here, and I certainly will defer to the council members who participated in this discussion as well, but essentially was to both streamline and clarify what the roles and responsibilities or duties were of the relative boards and commissions. And the outcome of that was an intent to get common language in there and to really get specific, because over the years the roles and duties of what the boards were actually doing did not necessarily align with what the code language was. And so as part of the outreach that the council representatives did in talking to the chairs and vice chairs or co-chairs was to talk to them and discuss amongst the council member representatives about what the expectation was that you had from those boards and commissions. And so the outcome of that is the recommendations that you have before you. And I won't belabor it because I imagine that some of the council members may have some additional comments about it. But in summary, that's what this is. And as council is aware, there are several areas of those recommendations. There is a change to the protocols relative to the liaisons that will occur and some other components, as Councilman Cernanek identified during this council updates as well. So this is one piece of those recommendations being brought forward for implementation.
Okay, any questions of staff? This is a public hearing. We have one individual on the roster, Mr. Bingham, if you would kindly join us and state your name and address for the record, if you please.
Half the audience.
Yeah, 50%.
Paul Bingham, 236 West Delaware Circle. I just finished my 49th year there. It's been a good 49 years. Anyway, Council and Mayor Pro Tem, I didn't want you to be disappointed and have me sit up there not say anything. I've just got a little objection to this ordinance, and it has to do with the liaisons. And in particular, it's the liaisons for the library and museum, and probably what I have to say applies to a couple more, but I'll just zero in on the library and museum. And I realize the quasi-judicial concern and all that. Basically, I want my council rep to know what's going on as much as he or she can possibly know about every aspect of this city. Meetings, groups, boards, commissions, the whole shebang. And I think that's very valuable. A couple items in the past, the library liaison's knowledge was greatly useful during the budgeting process a year or so ago. Another example is when the museum was being expanded, the museum's liaison to the council was really, really useful in that whole thing. It brought a lot of that information back to the council and facilitated a lot of the discussion back and forth when that was going on. And sure, that made that one person more knowledgeable about the museum, and in the other case, that made that one person more knowledgeable about the library. But I don't think you folks have to have exactly the same information on every aspect of this city. It's just fine if one of you is more astute in this area and that area and whatever. I really think the liaisons are valuable and should be retained at least on some of these boards. That's about the size of it. I would really, really request that you put that back in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify, and I'm sure the council's aware, there's actually no action in this ordinance relative to the liaisons. That amendment would come through a discussion for the council on the protocols, because that's where the liaisons are identified, is in the council's protocols. So, Paul, the ordinance this evening does not address whether to have or not have a liaison. That was a recommendation through the Boards and Commissions Task Force. The task force recommendations are in there, Paul, but the ordinance amendment are only on the duties for the boards and commissions. Okay, you bet.
But in that regard, does anybody who was on the task force want to chat about the discussion or the logic for the liaison?
I would recommend, if I may jump in here, that you have a public hearing now on this ordinance. That is an issue outside of this motion or this public hearing, and that conversation should occur during that time when you have that discussion.
Okay, there you go. Any other public comments, Norm? Okay. Thank you. Then,
Could I ask something? So this is just following up on what you said. So you're going to put that issue then that Paul's raised on a future agenda for us?
Well, we have the protocols and legislative rules, which will be coming back before council for amendment, and that would be the time when this conversation would occur, because that is one, as you're aware, Councilman Cole, one of several potential changes that will be proposed to the council is should you or should you not have the legislative, because it would remove, the liaisons, because it would remove that entire section from the council's protocols.
Thank you.
okay. Okay, I would then entertain a motion to...
You can just close the public hearing.
I can just close it? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and then ask if anyone would care to make a motion.
I move that the ordinance on first reading pertaining to the structure, power, authority, and duties of the boards and commissions be approved.
Second.
And we have a motion from Councilmember Cernanek, seconded by Councilmember Cole. Council, any comments, deliberation? Councilmember Beckman.
We did talk, we met about 12 times and talked about a lot of different issues, and also members of the team that worked on this interviewed the chairs and co-chairs of each of the boards and commissions to get a sense of how things were, if there were issues that perhaps we could address, and give us a better sense of a direction. I think this liaison thing may have been, to my mind, one of the tougher topics. And it was tough during those 12 meetings because we each saw different issues. The way it was arrived at was basically a consensus that what we had wasn't working as well as perhaps it could, and that the alternative to replace it with something that still gave great recognition to the work that those groups do, and to try to keep from separating council involvement with them, was to offer the alternative of having that group meet on whatever an as-needed basis with the council as a whole, rather than with one individual council member who may or may not have the gist of understanding what the questions might be. It might have been a broader council matter, and we wanted to give that opportunity for the broader council matter. I have to tell you, though, when I talked to some folks, and I did some of those interviews, I have to say that the liaison piece that Paul is mentioning did come up more than anything else. The changing of certain tasks, et cetera, were seen more as an update or a correction to maybe something that had been left for a while. I want to suggest that as we move this issue, which doesn't deal with the liaisons, but we move into the next issue of the council policies and procedures that does deal with the liaisons, that we consider, a review period. And I think to answer Paul's question tonight, because I know that's not the issue on the table tonight, but I think Paul and the folks that have asked those questions deserve that answer, so I wanted to mention that.
Just real quickly, on the part that's before us now, long-needed item, various boards and commissions were created and developed at different periods of time, and how their charges were sometimes inconsistent, not only between what they were doing, but from board and commission to board and commission as far as its level of authority. And this was really designed, in what's before us tonight, is the opportunity to clean that aspect up. That doesn't sweep under the rug the liaison issue. It says we're dealing with it kind of somewhat in piecemeal form, because the other ends up being tied up in a document that has other issues. So there's not really a way to grab onto everything at one point in time. And I think Bruce's point about having a study period for the liaison change is a good one, as it is in the protocols and legislative rules that we're choosing for ourselves. I view those as much more temporary than code aspects, and that's what we're dealing with tonight, is a code aspect, and see it as appropriate.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, and if you will cast your vote on the motion as presented. Anyone's in?
The vote is 6 in favor. The motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other business to come before council this evening?
I have a question. We got notice of a resignation from licensing authority, I think. Are we?
Yes, we did.
Are we? Well, you sent it, so. Are we thinking to try to to appoint someone, given the importance of having enough people?
We moved a.
We have an alternate that moved up
up.
into the position. So we have a full board. And so my recommendation is to wait until we redo the process, because the task force is going to discuss the process again.
Well, the only reason I ask that is we seem to have had a significant loss of people, and we're somewhat in jeopardy at one point of not having enough people to hold a meeting if everybody couldn't attend. So that particular board seems to be a little more challenging in terms of resignations.
Well, there were issues back about 6 months ago when 2 of the board members left, with the changes that council and staff had made. And now we have a good board, and what is his name? Chris is his first name. I couldn't think of his
Forrest.
last. Forrest.
Yeah.
He left for personal reasons. It didn't have anything to do with the board. So I think we're fine right now. And we've got another alternate.
We do have one alternate
Yes.
left. Okay.
Okay,
They haven't requested replacement of the alternate.
No, they have not.
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. Any other business? Seeing none, we are adjourned.